This is from Google Earth 2014. We bought the property in 2022, so the trees up front were all about 8 years old, and it was infested with popcorn trees, and I declared war. So the first 2 years I mostly used this little handsaw and poison, and the last year I used this little battery-powered 6-inch battery-powered saw, and it was so much better. But anyway, that front part is pretty much void of popcorn trees. I'm not saying there's none, but there aren't very many if there are any. Now here's an older photograph from Google Earth from 1998, and it shows that the back area was clear cut. So that makes the trees in this back area roughly 25 years old. So the popcorn trees are pretty mature back there, and there are plenty of them. So I was in this area about a year ago doing the chop and squirt method. I chopped that one and it died. Well, it's got a dozen leaves on top, but it doesn't look too good. I chopped this one, it died. And I chopped the second one over there, that one, and it died. And I chopped this big one here, and it looks healthy as it can be. It is full of leaves, so I'm gonna get the chainsaw and cut this one down. I've been in this area. The popcorn trees in the I guess the west side of the power lines where this was logged 20 something years ago, they're in groups. They're not evenly spread around. But this little area right here, man, this was just popcorn trees galore, and I've just been cutting and cutting and cutting. And there's more and more of them, but I'm gonna cut them all. Now this one I chopped and squirted, but it's still got a bunch of leaves up there, which means it'll probably make a bunch of seeds. So I'm gonna girdle it with the chainsaw and put some more poison on it. It'll fall down. I don't want to cut it down because it's gonna cause a lot of damage. No matter which way it falls, it's gonna damage a bunch of decent trees. So I'm gonna girdle it. It's gonna die. It'll still fall down eventually, but it'll weigh a third of what it weighs now, so it won't do so much damage, because these tallow trees, they're real wet wood. It dries out, it just gets super light. So I'm gonna run it, circle around it with the chainsaw. I'm gonna use my battery powered saw and then spray it again with poison. I wanted to show you the chop and squirt method if you weren't familiar. It just takes a squirt bottle with the herbicide and a hatchet, and you just damage the bark, or more than the bark. You try to get into that wet part of the wood, where the growing part of the wood, and you squirt it with the herbicide, and that's it. And most of the time they die, but it does take a while, maybe a year. I've done dozens of these, maybe even 100. They're going to die, they're going to fall. When I cut them with the chainsaw, they die and they fall. They have different advantages. When you cut them with the chainsaw and you put them on the ground, that tree is not going to consume any more groundwater, any more nutrients, or any more sunlight. It's done. The bad part is it's somewhat hazardous, and it's physical. Dragging a chainsaw through the woods, through the mud. This little saw, this is much easier. With the chainsaw, you got to have oil and you got to have gas, and it's just kind of a pain. But some days I just feel like chainsawing, and some days I don't. So I just come with a little saw. And the difference between back here and up front is you can see the trees. You don't have to go through the briars. It's a lot more pleasant in that respect. So I've just been going around. I'm going to get all the trees. I had to take a break for hunting season. This is before hunting season. And I stayed out of the woods to help my son have a better chance of getting a good deer. But hunting season is over as of February 3rd. So I'm back in the woods now, and I'm going chainsaw crazy. So I'm getting ready to cut this popcorn tree. It's one of the bigger ones I've cut so far. And it would be nice if it would lay down here in the road where I could cut it up. But I believe it's top heavy. Gonna go that way up into the woods. And you can only control so much about which way the trees are gonna fall if they're not, straight up and down. So I guess I will encourage it to go that way toward that big dead pine tree over there. Not this dead one right here. Yeah, this will be interesting. If I get it on the ground, just think how many tens of thousands of seeds I won't have to deal with next year. Cut this notch to try to encourage it to fold at a right angle to that cut, which is going to put it right to the left of that dead pine tree. But I've been doing this for a year, and sometimes they surprise you. They don't always go where they're supposed to, but it's time. That was perfect.
So when you cut down these Chinese tallow trees or these popcorn trees, no matter how big or how small, you have to poison the stump with a herbicide. Otherwise, they will root sprout 100 trees for every one you cut down. I use a product called Pasture Guard, and I mix it with a surfactant that kind of makes it stick. And I put some coloring in it. That's just for my benefit, so I can keep track of what I've sprayed and what I hadn't sprayed. You got to spray them real quick. The quicker you spray them after you cut them, the better, because they'll seal up like in a few minutes, and then the spray won't do as much good.
All right, let's move on. Okay, I'm going to try to get it to go that way. It's kind of borderline. It may go that way and it may not. Well, let's see what we can do.
This next cut should have been a lot lower. It should have been closer to the notch. I didn't really get the hinge effect that I was after. I don't know why I cut it up so high. The tree fell in the right direction, but I could have done a better job with that for sure. Then I usually go back and cut the stump square. I can do a better job with the herbicide. I don't waste as much, and I think I get better coverage if there's not a bunch of jagged edges sticking up. This is always good to see on a popcorn tree. If there's mushrooms, the tree is dead.
So I think I'm through with this area, or at least this half of it. I got them all on the ground. And there's a few that are still standing, but I girdled them and poisoned them. And there's a bunch of dead ones standing. I'm just gonna leave those alone. And what I wanna do now, which is not very fun, is to go through here and cut this stuff up shorter so that it lays on the ground. It will rot much quicker if it's on the ground or close to the ground than if it's like that big log and suspended in air. So yeah, we want them to rot away. We don't want them to be firewood. We want them to be damp. So I'm gonna get the saw and cut, and this is where I get the chainsaw stuck sometimes because it's kind of hard to guess which way these logs want to go. But then I'll get my other chainsaw and free it, and sometimes, or once or twice, I've had both chainsaws stuck and relied on my little electric one to get them out. I don't have the track hoe here on the property, so I'll be in a bind if I get them, all three of them stuck.
So here I got the camera mounted on my forehead with a little strap that I found. I must have bought it years ago. I didn't even know I owned it. And you can see probably why I stay so confused, because I can't keep my head straight in any one direction. I hope you don't get too dizzy. This is what it's like living inside my head.
Well, they're not all on the ground, but they are much shorter, so that'll rot faster because the end grain will let in moisture. Man, it is November and it's still stinking hot. It's probably close to 90 degrees right now. All right.
So this is one of the last days that my Sears Craftsman saw was functioning. I really liked that saw. It was lighter than the two steel saws that I have to use, and it turned very fast, and it had a thin chain, so it cut really fast, and I was really comfortable with it. But it broke and parts were not available, so it's gone. And here we had a lot of down pine trees from the pine tree beetle, a lot of dead pine trees, and while I'm cutting, I cut them up to get them on the ground. And those are really hard to judge what's going to happen when you cut them, and the saws get stuck sometimes. So here I got both saws stuck. I didn't use my little battery powered saw to get them out. At this time the track hoe was right around the corner, so I just kind of picked up on the tree a little bit and the saws fell out.
I've been messing with this popcorn tree video on these mature popcorn trees for several months now, and it was like a bad little area in here, and I cut them all down, and my intention today was to come and burn them, but it's really wet, and every spot that's clear to the sky where I can make a good fire I can't really get to. So I'm gonna go further down the road. There's some more I can burn, not as many, but that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a burn pile today. So I found that the best way to start a fire out here when everything's wet
is from wood scraps from the shop and some charcoal lighter fluid and a striker, just like the pioneers used to do. And then I'll cover this up with some branches and stuff. Try to get it going.
Okay, well, we don't need any more lighter fluid. We got it going. And now I'm going to come in here with the track hoe and gather up these big chunks and put it on top and try to make my way around the back so it can't spread too far. But I would like for it to spread mostly into this pile of junk. I just need to contain it, that's all. But the ground's really wet, so I'm not too worried about it spreading. Okay, so now the fire in the bottom's hot enough to boil the steam out of all these, or boil the water out of all these wet logs. And we are burning, and it'll stay burning for a long time. I'm gonna hang around with the little track hoe in case the fire light collapses and goes to the side or whatever. And when it burns down a little bit in a few hours, I'm gonna keep pulling all this debris. This was a horrible, messy area with all the vines, and I think, if I remember right, a lot of these trees came down with Hurricane Ida like 4 years ago. It just made a big old mess. So anyway, fire's burning good. I got a pine tree down on the other side of the road. I'm gonna cut it up and hang out for a little while. I did dig up a piece of a rotten stump. There's one piece here and there's one piece on the other side. And it's obviously pine with a lot of resin, and it is burning like crazy in spite of being soaking wet. Wish I'd had it in the bottom. We'd had a bigger fire by now. Well, it's been, I think, 3 hours, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 3 hours since I lit it, and it's making its way. The fire is actually making its way through this wet timber. It's about halfway through. What really set it off was this couple of pieces of pitch pine or starter pine or whatever you want to call it. It burns so hot. Anyway, I'm gonna go up front. I got some stuff to do up front. Come back in a little while and check it. And I don't think there's a chance in the world of it spreading because everything on the ground is so wet.
I tell you what, there is no future in doing this by hand if you're lucky enough to have a track hoe and ground that will support the track hoe. I can't even imagine pulling out all these vines and thorns and Chinese privets and dealing with all these logs without my friendly little track hoe. So David came by for a visit. He got on the track hoe and he is continuing kind of what I was doing, just pulling all the dead, tangled vines and logs and moving them over and putting them on top of the fire. The higher you stack it, the quicker it'll get hot and burn. But this stuff is, I keep saying this, but it's pretty wet. It's hard to get this stuff going, which I guess that's the safest way to have a fire that you gotta make burn rather than worry about making it not burn so fast. So just trying to clean this little area up. So while we were in the back working, it looks like Johnny found my apple.
So we got a pretty good bed of coals here on this half of the fire. It still hadn't reached the other half. I guess probably because we keep making the other half bigger. But it's starting to rain. It's 5 o'clock, time to eat supper. So I'm gonna leave it alone. And imagine it's gonna look a little different when I get out here in the morning. Well, that fire never made it past the halfway point last night. It seems to be like a log jam right here. And then we got a lot of rain, 1/4 inch of rain. So I'm gonna try to revive it and then take the track hoe and maybe break up that pile. Maybe it's just the logs are too big or they're too wet to get it going again. I got a piece of pine on there. It should flare up in just a minute when it gets warmer. Okay, got a fire going again. Not super robust, but I think it's good. I set all these by hand. And now I'm gonna get the chainsaw and try to move some of these pieces. See, I got like a fire break right here, and it was 3 big horizontal logs, and the fire never got through that. But I'm gonna pick and choose and try to get some burnables. Hopefully this whole thing will go up. Well, no more rain expected today. So this is as wet as it's gonna be all day long, and it's pretty wet. All right, we got a good fire going. I'm gonna take the track hoe and set these 3 shorter logs that are on top over in this low spot. Take this big one off and cut it into thirds, and then we'll see where we go from there. Fire's burning, but the progress in that direction seems to be incredibly slow. But I got an idea. This, I believe, is one of those pine like lighter logs, and there's another one over there on the ground. So I think I'm gonna pull this pile apart so I can get down low and put one or both of these over here on a hot fire, get them started, and then move them while they're on fire, and then put a pile on top. Maybe the fire can start from this side too, maybe. How about that? So if they light up, I'll just need to pick them up and drop them over here and cover them up with all this junk, and maybe we'll have a more aggressive fire. I mean, it's burning, but it might be a week to get through here. I'd rather go a little quicker. Oh yeah, it's been 5 minutes and it's burning. Now, how did I know that this was a lighter log or a pine full of sap, full of rosin? Well, I didn't really, but I do know that this area was logged about 25 years ago. and anything that's not full of resin, it's gone. It's rotted away. There's nothing left. And when I come across these stumps that are still hanging in there, I just know they're full of resin. So now I'm gonna pick it up before it gets too hot and put it on the other side. Oh no! Put it out. Wasn't ready. Alright, I'll get it again. No, it's still going. Still going. I tried to put it out, but it's still going. I'm gonna give it a second before I pile all this wet wood on top of it. Well, I actually did put it out the first try and the second try, but the third try we got it going. And we got a fire on this side now. And look at that black smoke. That's from that pine sap. So if I can keep these two going hot, maybe by the end of the day, this pile will be mostly gone. So that's kind of about all I can do right now. I got all the wet muck stuff stacked up on top so it can be steaming dry. And can't make it much higher because it keeps falling down. So the higher the better as far as drying out the stuff for the fire. So I'm just gonna let it be for an hour or so and come back and see if we made any progress. I think we've made progress already today. The pile looks quite a bit smaller. So this fire is from 11 Chinese tallow trees I cut in this little one little area, popcorn trees. And also they were tangled up with all these Chinese privets. This was a real Chinese privet grove, another tree I would love to get rid of. So I'm not planning on burning everything and cut down. I've probably cut down hundreds, and I've probably poisoned that many that'll start coming down. But this area was just so ugly with the trees all hung up in the privet. It's right here on the side of the road. So I cleaned it up and burned it. There's a pile back there about 200 yards that I want to burn because they're all stacked on top of each other. But if it's just a log laying on the ground, that doesn't bother me. They're gonna stay. Anyway, I guess I can wrap up this crazy video about killing popcorn trees and now burning popcorn trees, really. So yeah, not much of a stable content. It's just what I've been doing with these trees. I've been doing this off and on for 3 years, and I'll probably be doing it for 3 years, 3 more years if I'm healthy enough to do it. I plan on cleaning these woods out of all these trees that shouldn't be here and plant some different trees and just keep the area kind of clean because it makes me feel better. All right, first trip back to the site of the fire. It's been a week and a day and pretty amazing. It pretty much all burned down except for right around the edges. Pretty happy with this. I'm gonna make another fire today. I'm gonna try to drag all this rubbish over here with the track hoe and then work on this pile of logs, but keep the fire in the same place. And I don't want to get it too big because it's kind of breezy. So, but we'll make us a little fire. So after burning trash that day, this is what it looks like the following week. Man, I'm pretty happy with this. Maybe one day, maybe all of our acreage will be this clean and neat once I get rid of all the stinking popcorn trees and the downed pine trees. So thanks for watching.